Safe Shelter had a tremendous impact on my life and my children's life. When the incident happened back in 2004, when I was shot by my husband at the time, Safe Shelter was there. They had helped me before this happened with the outreach program. They were able to get the temporary protective orders for me, get me in touch with the police and the right people I needed to get in touch with. But when I was shot, I didn't have any place else to go because he was on the run. And so it was not safe for me to return home. So I came to the shelter. And once I got here to the shelter, I've never had such a traumatic experience like that in my life. I was home, married with kids. Now I'm uprooted, having to go to a place I never went. But the staff was wonderful. They were caring, they were compassionate, they were understanding, they were kind. And when I came here, it was me and my son, because my son had been shot also. He was only 18 months old at the time. Just learned how to walk. Came to the shelter, and the shelter took care of us. They had wonderful programs here. When I finally was able to return home, I continued with the follow-up program. They provided counseling for my children. My children were able to participate in different activities, and they were there for us. For victims of domestic violence, don't be so hard on yourself. But you have to make up your mind and determine that this is enough. You're tired of taking the abuse. You have to make up your mind that you're strong enough, that you're a better person than what you think you are. And seek friends that will talk to you, not judge you. Seek advice. Just find somebody you can confide in and someone you can trust. And hopefully that person would be someone who can lead you to the right person in the right direction. But don't be so hard on yourself. You need someone that's not going to judge you. Don't be there and say, well, if it was me, I would have done this, because you don't know until you walk the mile in those shoes. So don't be judgmental, don't be confrontational, just be there. Help them to develop a safety plan. And that's something I would tell the victims also, develop a safety plan. Because when you leave, that's the most dangerous time. I learned that once you make that decision to leave, when the person who's abusing you, they lose control. They realize that they're losing control, and they'll go through any means that they can, even if it means trying to take your life. But you have to make that decision that you've had enough. And I would tell people, just don't judge them. Don't point your finger at them. And just be there for them and talk to them, because they're still going to mourn a loss because they lost a relationship. They're probably going to blame themselves, but you just need to be there just to encourage them. Isolation. That's one of the main signs. They try to isolate you from family, friends, anyone that they feel like you might confide in. They come up with these ideas, oh, I just love you, I just want it to be just me and you, or me and you and our family and no one else. And you're thinking, yeah, this person really loves me, they really just want to be with me. But really what they're trying to do is isolate you, so you won't be around anyone. So isolation and control. Well, you know, they will put on the show like everything is good and everything is wonderful. But once that person leaves and you get behind closed doors, it's just a total change. You know, they're going to try to put ideas in your head that this person is not for you. My ex even tried to isolate me from my own mother. You know, he was saying that, you know, your mother's against us, your mother, you know, he would put on an act. But then he would try whatever he could. Well, no, let's not go over there this time. Or let's just spend the holidays, just me, you, and the family. We don't need to go see them. You know, any little tactic that he can come up with. Or if you tried to go, he would disable my car so I couldn't leave the house. So then, you know, I wasn't mechanically inclined. So I'm thinking something's wrong with the car. But come to find out, he rigged something so I couldn't leave. So, of course, what I would have to do, I would just have to stay there with him. And I still work during this time, but I would hide the bruises. And he was smart enough to know not to make the bruises obvious, like on my face. It would just be arms, legs, things that I could cover up. And I used to go to work and I would have bruises on, but I would have a sweater on. No one would know, and I kept it to myself for a long time. Really, the first time. It's long. But I stayed in it for a while. Not years, but some people do. Some people stay in it for years. I didn't stay in it for years because as things started happening in my life and I realized all these different people were leaving my life, you know, like I said, the isolation, and things just weren't the same. And the big trigger for me was when my daughter was taken. She had confided in her father, and her father had got her. And then I finally realized this is not right. This is not the life that I'm supposed to live. So I finally made a decision to leave. And once I left one weekend. I left just with clothes for the weekend. That was it. Me and my son, we went to go see my mom. And once I got there, my mama told me, she said, "You're not going back." But I told her, I said, "Mom, I gotta go back. That's my husband, that's my house." She said, "You're not going back." And, you know, once I got away and got out the situation, I was really able to sit and think and realize, you know, okay, this is not right. This is not what a marriage is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about being hit and abused and slapped around. And once I did that, she knew someone who knew about Safe Shelter. And once we contacted them, and actually through my church, they knew about Safe Shelter. One of the pastors knew about it. They got us in touch with Safe Shelter, with the outreach program with Cheryl and Rose. And once I started telling them what was going on, because at first I didn't realize that it was domestic abuse. I mean, I've never been in a situation like that. So once I realized that, got me in touch, we got the temporary protective order, got him put out the house. That's when it really got dangerous. Once he was removed from the home and he realized he was losing control. And one morning I was home and I decided, you know, leaving for work, and I saw a strange car pull up, and he got out the car with a gun and just started shooting, and I just started running. I had my son on my hip, and I just started running, and shots were fired. I didn't know I was hit. I didn't know my son was hit. I fell on the ground. He drove off, and all I remember is just screaming, screaming, screaming. I mean, this happened over 10 years ago, but I could still remember it. I could still, you know, just feel it in my heart. And I didn't realize my son had been shot till the neighbors came out, and they said, "Oh my God, he's been shot too." And they took us to the hospital and, you know, helped us out. He was shot in the leg, but it did break his leg at 13 months. But, you know, the doctors took care of us. The hospital was great. The police, once we were released, that's when we came to the shelter. I don't know if I would say I would do anything differently, because now this is a part of my experience. This is a part of my life. This is my testimony. I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe God chose me for it. And what I try to do now is speak about it. Let women know that you don't have to be a victim. You can be a survivor. You can be a victor, not a victim. And I have used this experience to strengthen myself, to help strengthen other women. Let them know it doesn't matter what economic background you come from, you know, what kind of life you live in. This can happen to anyone. I never thought it would happen to me, but it did. So I just try to use this experience to turn into something positive. Just to try to get out in the community and let people know that it doesn't have to be your dirty little secret. It doesn't have to be that. It is sort of like a silent killer, because a lot of women, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, they keep it inside. And I walked around like that too. But then I was determined after this happened, I was not going to let him win. I was not going to let him have that power over me. I got to do something else about it. So that's what I'm trying to do. He was in prison. We had to go through 2 trials, a federal and a state trial. And I will tell you, Safe Shelter was there with me the whole time, There's a federal trial because he was a convicted felon. So we went through a federal trial first. And I tell you, the wheels of justice do move slow. So it was couple of years after it happened. But we went through that federal trial. I was face to face with him. He denied everything. He looked at me and he denied everything. But I stood firm. I got up on the stand. I told my testimony, and he was convicted. We had to also go through a state trial because he had state charges also. Once again, I had to come face to face with him. Once again, he denied everything. Of course, you know, when you're on the stand, they try to make you seem like you don't know what you're talking about. But he was convicted. So he had to serve federal and state time. He's now in federal prison. He probably has about 8 more years in federal, because he's already done his state time. So he's been in prison since it happened in 2004. I don't know what's going to happen when he gets out. Hopefully he would go about his business. You know, when you get ready to leave, you need to have all your important papers, you know, like birth certificates, social security cards. You need to have clothing, sharp records, and it's like a survival kit, really. You know, anything that you would use, almost like, I wouldn't say like you go on a vacation, but anything you would pack for a trip. But this is going to be the trip of your life. The trip between survival and maybe not surviving. And you have to be strong, and you just have to make up your mind. I didn't really have a certain developed safety plan, but I knew when I left that once I was able to leave, that I could go. Like I said, I only had the clothes for the weekend. That was it. That's all I had, clothes for the weekend. But I took all of that and I just got in my car and I left. And I didn't look back. I didn't return to that home until he was gone. But since then, I've moved on, moved to a new house. I got my college degree. So I'm continuing my career path, and I'm raising my children. And I'm alive. Wow. I still have the bullet wounds.